Hi, I'm Tiffany Slowinski. I'm excited to be on the Prosperity Show today. In this episode, you're going to hear about my journey from guidance counselor to the CEO of TeamSpark, advisors, and everything in between.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, the #1 place to uncover exclusive insights, strategies, and stories that help you overcome your toughest business and leadership challenges. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got Tiffany on the call today. Now, Tiffany, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing, Prosper?
I am doing mighty fine. I'm just excited for what we're about to uncover here and all the stories of how you have made it this far. Now, for those that are meeting Tiffany for the very first time, she is the CEO of TeamSpark Advisors. She's also the co-owner of 7 thriving franchises and also former VP of sales. And an intriguing fact, she's a mother of 4 energetic daughters. And, don't let that, distract you from her, glowing resume. She also has a master's in psychology from Columbia and blends hardcore data with heartfelt empathy to help leaders build purpose-driven and high-performing teams. Now, I know we're going to be bonding, connecting, we're going to laugh, we're going to learn, but by the end, I think you're going to see why this episode should now be the turning point for either you, your team, or your business. Now, Tiffany, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. Let's maybe start off with, something that really surprised me. I've got 2 girls, and I can hardly rein them in and things like that. You've got 4. Tell me, what is it like at breakfast or at dinner time with 4, girls in space?
It's loud. A lot of energy going on. They keep me on my toes. I don't know what it would really be like to have boys, I guess, at this point. But yeah, our house is definitely loud, a little chaotic, a lot going on. There's always something for someone that needs to be done. It's summer vacation here, so they're off from school too. So they're around a whole lot as well at the moment, which is making it even a little more chaotic. So I try to put a little summer structure in there for them, because when they know what to expect, I think they do a little bit better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You see, I can't even get my girls to eat breakfast, let alone get them to do certain things. So you seem to have a built-in leadership lab in that particular household there. And obviously you might as well find your negotiation skills being tested. Like I said, I'm trying to say, okay, would you want your phone or do you want breakfast? For me, that's the scenario that I have to deal with and things of that nature. So is that where the empathy comes from? For me,
I've really pushed them to foster a good amount of independence. Whether they're girls or boys or whatever, it's 4 kids, and I work a lot, right? I run multiple businesses. And so if there's things that they're able to do themselves, I've always pushed them to do themselves, part out of necessity, and then part because I believe that's what makes them more self-sufficient. Those are traits that are going to help them in adulthood. And so from pretty young ages, they've learned how to get themselves up in the morning, get ready for school, get themselves packed up. They take the school bus out front. They know what they have their Alexa with the times, what time they eat, because they all leave at different times. Because not only 4 kids, I got 4 kids in 4 different schools. So all different school bus schedules and all of that kind of stuff. And so I feel like my youngest is 8 going on 18. She just pretty mature in a lot of ways for her age, incredibly immature in other ways. So but she definitely does a lot more than a lot of other kids in her grade.
Mm, absolutely. Now, having young minds around you doesn't start with your household. You've actually been guiding students as a counselor before. Tell us a little bit about, that part of your beginning, and then, how it then led you to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I started my career as a guidance counselor for 13 years, where I was working with high school students, and it kind of gave me a little glimpse, I think, into the future for my own kids. It shaped a lot of my parenting beliefs because I worked with a bunch of high schoolers, and I was like, oh, like I see the things that I think have been done well. I see things that maybe were a little bit troubling to me. And so a lot of times, and how it's kind of informed how I've raised my own kids, and that also is a bit behind why I push a lot of this, the independence and things like that, is I saw kids in high school who weren't able to kind of have basic conversations. They were so used to being behind screens, and a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental health issues going on. And it's only gotten honestly worse since COVID. And so for me, kind of getting that glimpse into it, I was like, okay, well, this is how I want to raise my kids. Now, am I perfect at it? No, certainly not. I have my moments, and I'm a human as well. But it did give me pause and make me look at some of the choices. And one of my kind of favorite sayings was little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And if you could deal with the problems when they're little, that's going to help you avoid some of the bigger problems when they get big.
Absolutely. I like that. Little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. But being a guidance counselor sort of emanates from you having wanted to be something or do something. Was that always a childhood dream, or was that on your way towards being VP?
Yeah, no, it was definitely not always a childhood dream. I went to school for journalism, and so I studied journalism and psychology. And I was coming up on my senior year, and I was like, okay, now what? And I really loved my psychology classes. That's what had attracted me into going to grad school. And I liked kids, and it just seemed like I like people a lot. I like helping. I always liked school. Like funny enough, I'd spent my whole life in school, and so school was something I felt very comfortable being around. And early in my career, I really enjoyed it. I liked working with the kids. It was exciting to me. I loved the college process and helping them get ready and advising. But then as more years went on, I think it became really apparent to me I am not cut out for being in a union. And it's not super inspiring to me to have a pay scale and look at it and go, well, this is the exact amount of money I'm going to make next year and the year after and the year after. And it doesn't really matter that I'm excelling in my work because there's no kind of fast track here. You're kind of just on par. And so it's an environment that doesn't really motivate people who have a little bit more of a competitive nature like I do, or a little who want to push things a little further. So, I enjoyed the work when I was young, but once I felt I had outgrown it, I was looking for something else to do. I wanted something more. I didn't want to have the same year on repeat over and over.
Absolutely. Quite a lot of people leave, what do they say, for all their lives, but it's just 1 year on repeat over and over and again. And with what you're talking about, journalism, psychology, you just getting into the intricacies of people, either at their best or at their worst. Did you go on and practice journalism, or did you then just use that as a stepping stone to your sales roles?
So it's interesting. I feel like everything I've done is built on itself, not necessarily in the way you would have thought. So my journalism degree really taught me how to connect with humans and interview and get interesting stories out of people, which I used a lot of those skills actually when I became a counselor. I was very comfortable asking uncomfortable questions, right? And from there, we actually, me and my husband, our franchises are magazines. And so I did not have a sales background at the time, not much of one. And we started these magazines where I was definitely using my journalism background and a natural understanding of storytelling and connecting with readers. Only it became both about telling the story, but then you've got to fund this magazine, you've got to sell advertising, and so also connecting with the advertisers. And if you create a product that people want to read, then the readers are going to see the ads, and that helps support the businesses, right? And so that's definitely all worked its way into each other. And then from there, starting with Team Spark Advisors, what I do is I'm an executive advisor with Culture Index. That's a survey I use, and I help businesses measure people's natural traits and put them in the right seats. So we use this in our own business as a client first. How do we build out our team? How do we get the right people in the right roles? How do we get the right people who need to be in sales versus administrative tasks and things like that? And when I started working with Culture Index and using it, I became enamored. And I think part of it was my psychology background there. That was coming out again and understanding people and human behavior. And I had this resource that I could really see it in data points so clearly. And so, like I said, everything I've been doing is it's working it's in step. And it's kind of led me down different paths than I ever thought. I did not have this all plotted out when I was a kid.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was Steve Jobs that mentioned you cannot connect the dots looking forwards. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And
I like that.
Yeah, just using whatever you've got as the stepping stones really does, make it all happen. But you went from obviously selling, as the VP and then building these teams. And obviously you are talking about the culture index, which we will get into. But what made you sort of realize that I need to start building teams for a living, not just sell to them?
Yeah. My own culture index, looking at my own results.
Right. Okay. Right.
Truthfully, saying, I'm not really great at working for other people. I do better working for myself.
Right.
I have the natural skill set to do this. I love helping. And so if again, you look back, I was a counselor. Now I feel like I'm a counselor for business owners and for CEOs, where I'm coming in and I'm helping solve their people problems. Because it's one thing to realize something's off and not working, but you don't always know how to fix it. And so my goal is not to come in and just say, fire everybody, they're all the wrong people. That's not possible nor very practical. Sometimes we have what we have and we got to learn how to work with them. So are there better ways to motivate somebody, to communicate with somebody? Because how I want to be spoken to is different than how you want to be spoken to, right? And so when I understand what somebody needs, I can make some small modifications that are going to make them more effective in that role and maximize their potential.
Quite like this. I mean, obviously, fish don't see the water that they swim in. Maybe they've been working with these people for quite a while and they don't quite realize that, hey, Sally could actually be much more useful in this particular position as opposed to her being in this particular position. So you've spoken about this culture index twice now. Maybe you can just give us an outline of what it is or what it's not. And then maybe we can then say, how did you personally, like you said, really get affected by it? Because this completely changed your trajectory and the way you were hiring and the way you were actually dealing with other people in your team.
Yeah, so it is a short survey that when you take it, you'd have no idea what you're answering. Like, it seems so simple. It only takes like 5-10 minutes. Okay. And at the end, it's like almost like getting a view into somebody's soul, who they are, what makes them tick. And by understanding who somebody is, you could be so much more productive and work with them so much better, right? And so what we're measuring are 7 work-related traits. And you said you have 2 girls. Their personalities are formed when they're young. It's nature and nurture working together, but it starts at a very young age. And by the time we're about the age of 13, some scientists would argue a lot younger than that, our personalities are fully formed. And so I'm really the same person I was as a child. Now, I've learned over time how to modify some of my behaviors, how to be socially acceptable. I can't go around having a temper tantrum like I would as a 5-year-old. But I am that same person. And so when I can be aligned in a role that fits who I am naturally, I'm going to be so much more fulfilled. I'm going to do a better job. Take a sales team, for example. When you have people who are naturally sales hunters, they are competitive, aggressive, self-starters. They want to get out there. They want to win. They want to get the deal done. They move quickly. They don't sweat the small stuff. We'll work out the details later. They're charismatic. They connect to people. When they're naturally built that way, then you give them some sales training and they hit it out of the park. Or you could have somebody who's introverted, doesn't want to bother people, highly in the details of things, a little worried, a little passive, and you can give them sales training and they might improve a little. But this other person's starting so much further ahead just by being built that way to begin with. And truth be told, that salesperson could be the most annoying person you'll ever meet, honestly, at first glance, because they don't want to fill out your CRM and they don't want to listen to the rules. And they're off there making friends and doing things, which could be very annoying if you don't understand how they're wired. And so I'll have people, I work with companies, they've got great salespeople, and their boss doesn't necessarily like them because they're like, oh, why don't they just fill out my CRM and do what they're supposed to do? And it's like, well, they're out there making deals, right? It's what makes them good at what they do. Stop trying to shove them in a box because you're trying to put them in a box with a lot of regulations. What they're going to do is go find something else to do because that's not how they're wired. They don't want to be treated that way. And so when you can learn, okay, this is who they are and what makes them so good at what they do, and get them in that right environment and get them at the right management. A lot of times we promote people to managers because they're the best worker. So, okay, you are really good at doing the job. Let's put you in leadership. Two different skill sets. The best worker doesn't necessarily make the best leader. And so now you've taken somebody, you've promoted them into a leadership role that they're not really equipped for. And now you've lost your best worker. And now you've got somebody in leadership who's not really that good at running the team. And now there's a trickle down effect of how it's affecting the people below them. And so when you can understand, is somebody meant to do this role or not, you're going to make better decisions for the company.
What I'm hearing here is you're literally giving people back to themselves. And indulge me here for a little bit, because if somebody has just been working, and nobody has given them a particular role that actually suits who they are based on who they actually are, they're just gonna maybe be like that fish that's crying because they can't climb a tree. And when you then do this culture index, you're breaking that pattern of them just doing work that doesn't resonate with them, with actually giving them the right tasks, the right roles, and the right responsibility, which then doesn't seem like work for them at the end of the day.
It motivates them. You don't need to take a round peg and try to jam it into a square hole.
Right.
Put somebody where they're meant to be. And so I look back, even my time as a guidance counselor, where was it a good fit? I'm a people person. I'm a connector. I'm helpful. I enjoy that. But you got to think about a school system. Think about the amount of rules, regulations, clock in at this time, out at this time. You make the same pay as everybody else. Or just like that for someone like me, who's naturally someone who wants more freedom and I'm creative and I'm a little out of the box. And that doesn't fit me at all. And so, okay, there was this people portion that made sense. But the rest of it, knowing what I know now, is not the environment for me to connect with people. I can connect with people in other environments. And that's why I love sales and I love culture index and I get to work with people. That's a better use of those talents for me that are more aligned with me.
Okay. So obviously this has been around Tiffany and stuff. And maybe somebody might be thinking, oh, I was good at school, or I was paying attention. I tied my laces at the time that I was asked to tie them. Maybe this doesn't affect me. Have you maybe had a moment when you had a client come to you, maybe fully frustrated and almost ready to quit? And what is it that you would have done using this to flip their world?
I have a lot of frustrated clients. That's a lot of times why they're working with me. They're trying to grow. They're trying to build. and they're hitting roadblocks. They're having turnover. They're having to get rid of people. They're replacing the same positions. Sometimes it's family businesses I'm working with where, okay, it's not so easy. This is second, third generation, and they're working with multiple levels of family, and they're in these roles and they don't see eye to eye with their brother, but they can't exactly kick him out, right? And so they are trying to figure out role alignment and putting people into the correct spots for themselves, and that we don't all just need to sit at the table and give opinions on everything. Let's align people to what they're best at.
Absolutely, because no two fingers on the same hand are of the same height. Now, when you discovered
I like that. I'm like,
yeah, that's like that. So when you discovered this and you decided, you know what, I'm gonna go at it, did you find what you were looking for?
yeah. So, like I said, I started on the client end, and I just became enamored with it. I was profiling everybody and anybody. I had the whole company profiled. I was all in on it, trying to understand it. Well, I hope this makes sense to me. I don't understand this piece, but they seem like this. I mean, it was really funny. I surveyed my own childhood best friend,
Hmm.
and her survey results came. And I called her up and I was like, yeah, I just think it's wrong this time. This doesn't sound like you at all from what I'm seeing. She's like, oh, what does it say? And so I went through it with her, and she goes, that's exactly me. And I said, that's not exactly you. This sounds nothing like you. And she's like, Tiffany, that's exactly me. And this is a friend I've had for 30 years.
Hmm.
And until that moment, I had viewed her differently than who she was. And then when I started breaking it down, it was like, oh my gosh, that is her. I just thought of her in a different light. And I was kind of joke, like when we were kids, our parents thought I was a bad influence. I'd be like, they're crazy. And now knowing what I know of her profile, I was like, oh, I really was a bad influence because she was a follower and would just go along with anything I came up with. And it's like, just, I didn't see it under that lens back then. You know, I thought we were partners in crime. But no, it was very much somebody who wanted, it was people pleasing and wanted to, she would just go along, right, with things. And it went from following along her parents to suddenly following along whatever her best friend was coming up with in a moment. And I had such a different lens on it. And she's like a little bit of a worry wart and always nervous about this or that happening. And I would kind of laugh about it when we were kids. And now I'm like, oh, that those are traits of hers coming out that I maybe was even suppressing and not paying attention to before. So you could be close with people. It's amazing. I'll have people survey their spouses and learn new things about them. And these are people you're obviously very, very close with, but you don't always know everything about someone, or you don't always maybe understand the context of what makes them tick.
Absolutely. Now, from what I'm gathering from all of this, it's not necessarily how you do things, then it's pretty much how you then surround, yourself with, because if you don't quite know who you are, you're obviously going to pile yourself up with people that don't quite align. And now you'll be wondering why there's always this friction and things like that. So like there's a lot of freedom that comes with this.
Yeah. I mean, some of it is aligning teams in a way that makes sense. It doesn't have to mean everybody's an identical human. I don't need everybody on my team to be Tiffany. I do need people to see my blind spots, right? But you could also play into your strengths. So me and my husband, we're business partners. We are similar in some ways and different in ways. And so I'm an extremely high social. I'm very extroverted in an extreme way. And he is less social, more introverted. Now, I always knew this about him. Anybody who's ever met him, everybody would joke, I'm the outgoing one. He's not. But since understanding the culture index, I realized what it does to him when I'm dragging him around to constant social events and why he wants to go home early and why it's frustrating to him. And so is it totally solved the problem? No. But there is more compassion on my end to say, maybe you can sit this one out, or maybe this one doesn't make sense because it's not filling your cup. It's it's draining your social battery, right? And so we can come to more of an understanding about those things. And yes, I always knew he was less social than me, but I don't think I ever really understood the impact on him, or I had sort of this mindset of like, well, suck it up. It's what you have to do, right? And it's like, well, no, he's maybe not bringing anything to that interaction by overdoing it on social outings. He's just
Mm,
going to reach a point. He's going to sit in the corner and not talk to anybody. Like maybe
absolutely.
he could just go home.
And he'll be much more useful than, obviously, since you've just thrown your husband into the ring, he's actually been there and encouraged you to bet on yourself, right? So obviously, as somebody who, because getting into all of this entrepreneurship, business, and everything else, it's just a difficult sort of thing for anyone to bear. Was there a specific conversation or moment that actually changed everything when he actually, encourage you to bet on yourself?
Yeah. So we started dating when we were in college. And back then, people would ask him, well, what do you want to do? And he'd always say, I want to start a business. And they go, oh, okay, doing what? And he'd go, I don't know. like, like what? Because he never had some sort of like super passionate about any particular industry or something where he had some great idea. It's not like he was going on Shark Tank with his big idea for a business. He just always knew he wanted to be a business owner. That was always appealing to him. And so he actually started his first business like 13, 14 years ago, before we ever worked together. And so that has always been ingrained in him. And again, also understanding his culture index now, he's the most common profile of small business owners, and kind of joke because he's borderline unemployable because he's stubborn and he's visionary and he doesn't like to get in the weeds and he's a big picture thinker. And he doesn't always clean up the mess around him. He needs to bring other people in, right? And so he's always been very pro business, very supportive. He was the one who wanted me to go into business with him when we started our magazines. He saw that as a good fit for me and saw it as something that we could work on together. So he's much more visionary than I am. He can connect the dots easier than I can. And so when we first started our first magazine, we had just gone through training, and we get over from training and I'm like, okay, we got to hit the ground running. On Monday, we got to go on some meetings, right? And he's like, yeah, I've been plotting out all the markets. I think there's about 30 good markets in New Jersey for future magazines. And then when we're done launching magazines in New Jersey, we could probably go to New York, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. And I said, you've been sitting here plotting out all the markets for the state, and I've been busy getting us meetings so we could actually like sell some advertising and make some money here. But that's his strength, is like he was always looking ahead to what was next, where we were going. And I was living more in this moment of like, I had to be the workhorse and like, let's get it done. And it really takes both in the business because he's been able to guide the vision, but it can't be all vision without somebody there to do some of the work, right? And that's where I came in. So it's been really amazing. He's my best cheerleader, to be honest. Very supportive. We joke, again, understanding our culture index profiles in the way that we're similar is that neither one of us has a brake in our car. We are not risk averse people. We go 1,000 miles an hour, and we're not very fearful of a whole lot, which will probably get us in trouble at some point or another. But we vibe off each other. Like I'll say something and be like, that's a great idea. And I'll be like, all right, let's go do it. And before we know it, things have kind of spiraled. Because neither one of us is the person who's going to go, well, I don't know about that. Maybe it's a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe it's just not how we operate.
Absolutely. Now, if we're going to be tying it all together, how do you see that pivot that you made from obviously journalism, then counseling, to franchising, and now obviously dealing with teams and things like that, having shaped the person and the leader that you are today?
I mean, I have so much experience in different areas, right? I've worked with a lot of people. I've done different things in my career, and like kind of how I was saying earlier, it's always built on itself through those experiences. I don't regret any of the things I've done. I wouldn't be here without them. But I think with what I'm doing now, just having this deep understanding of humans, it's both interesting to me, but I see the value of it. I couldn't imagine working with somebody and not having data on them. In fact, I'll be at parties sometimes and feel uncomfortable because I haven't surveyed people, because it's now like, oh, I don't know, like, how do I communicate with them? What would they find interesting, right? Because I'm so used to knowing things about people, and that informs a lot of my behaviors. So I don't think I can unsee what I see at this point. Like, I'm in it for the long haul here. I don't understand how any company can operate without understanding your workforce.
Absolutely. But, just maybe to look at it from another point of view, because in a way, this sounds like you will be obviously having to profile someone just so you can put them in a seat within an office or things like that. So what sort of misconceptions might people have about this culture-based hiring, or maybe psychology-driven sort of team building ways that obviously you might want to debunk right now?
Yeah. So some people are fearful of it. What is it going to say about me? And I always like to kind of take that anxiety level down. There is value in every person. There's no perfect profile. There's no perfect person. What could be really good in one scenario could be really awful in another scenario. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And the goal is to align myself in a way where I get to be my authentic self as much as humanly possible. Do I always get to be my authentic self? No. Everybody has to modify sometimes. I'm someone, I like to take charge. I'm a leader. I get in a room. I could be talkative. I know I could be a bulldozer. I could like bulldoze over people when I'm in a rush trying to get things done, right? So I'm aware of that. So I have to purposely slow myself down, learn to listen. And so some of my counseling skills, right? I could be quieter than people might anticipate because I've learned to sit in silence. I've learned to let other people speak. I've learned, to tune in those listening skills. But I can't do that 24 hours a day or I'd go crazy, right? So as much of my time as possible getting to be myself is going to bring out my strengths. So this is not just about hiring and like, oh, we've hired the right person, now we're done. You still have to be able to work with them. Things still come up. And so the more you can understand them, this is an ongoing process. This is not a set it and forget it. And there's a lot of surveys out there, and people will take them and they'll read their little report and they go, oh, that's so interesting. And then they don't know how to apply it and they throw it in a desk drawer and they never look at it again. So this is as useful as what you do with the data. And that's where I really come in, is helping companies to actually implement it. They bring me in because of hiring. They stick around with me because of the work I do with their existing teams, because it goes so much deeper than just hiring the right person. You now have to keep the party going, right? And the dynamics constantly change and there's movement in companies. It's not a set it and forget it. Or even sometimes you might be hiring somebody for this entry level position, but you understand they have the makings of somebody who could be in leadership at some point. So how are we grooming them for that, preparing them for that? They might have to be in a role that's not 100% in line with their authentic selves at the moment. But if you're painting the vision, all right, you've got to learn this baseline so we can get you to these steps. That's going to motivate them, keep them there, rather than throw them in there and you didn't communicate that with them. And then they think they got to go job hopping to get those opportunities.
Absolutely. Now, I'm also hearing here that there's going to be a need for a lot of empathy, because what you're doing is you're literally showcasing to people that this is who you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to be. Either if they like those results, they'll be happy with that. And if they don't, then there's going to be a need to walk them through that understanding of this is not an attack on you. It is what it is. So let's work with what we've got. Now, how do you strike that balance when it comes to maybe tough decisions Like you have to fire somebody or restructure and things of that nature when
Yeah.
people's results come to light.
So it's probably my gift is I'm really good at telling people who they are, explaining it in a way that they can hear it. If you come in with very aggressive language and try to make somebody feel bad about who they are, they're going to shut you down. They're not going to listen, right? I'm very honest in what I say, but there is a way in which you can word things that will make people open-minded to hearing that. If there comes a moment in time where it's necessary to make a change, to either move somebody into a different position or maybe they're just not a fit for the company, I'll tell you, they usually know that. They're not stupid, right? They come to work every day and they're not feeling good in that role either. They know something's wrong. They know they're not doing well. And I look at it at some points like a gift because if they're not doing well here, give them permission to go be better somewhere else, to get into the correct role for themselves. I've left careers, right? Because it wasn't a fit and I had the wherewithal to make that decision. A lot of people, a lot of my old coworkers, they didn't feel like they had the ability to do that. So I view it like a gift when you show someone who they are and you even help them understand where they're going to be a better fit. You know, I've got gifts. I've also got things I'm not good at. You wouldn't want me to be your accountant. I would screw up your books, right? And so if I had to be in a role that was highly detailed and I had to sit in numbers and do very repetitive type work, I'd make mistakes. Trust me, I'd be stressed on that job and I'd be doing nobody any favors.
Absolutely. I mean, I've just looked on your site and there's testimonials like you saw my hidden strengths before I did. And obviously things like that, when somebody literally now knows what their strengths are, they can act on those and do and have a happier existence. So if
I've
we
had CEOs ask me, Tiffany, do you think I'm in the right seat? And they're asking me that because they know there's an issue. And now I've given them this data point and they feel comfortable to ask me that question, right? So it's not always like you're giving people this information that they're like totally shocked at. Like there's an inner understanding that, and those types of roles are not for everybody. They're very stressful. There's people who are not enjoying their lives in those roles. And they know that, but they don't know what to do about it.
Absolutely. And obviously, who would you want reaching out to you and where can they go on the internet to figure out how they can get started?
Yeah, so they could certainly look me up at teamsparkadvisors.com, or you could look me up on LinkedIn, Tiffany Slowinski. I'm always looking to connect with companies that are growing, are visionary. They see the future, they want better. They have a growth mindset, right? They want to make fixes here. They realize they've got some challenges with their people. Those are great people to reach out to me.
Fantastic. I will obviously make all those links in the show notes below so that we can obviously get people to figure out, their culture index there. Now, indulge me here for a little bit, Tiffany. You see, I was born in Africa, and obviously when we get to a certain age at like 16 or 17 for boys and 13 for girls, we are proverbially called in by the village elders. And then they say, they take us through, teach us all we need to know about, first of all, ourselves, our culture, and everything else that happens. And they proverbially tap us on the shoulder to say, this is your turn to lead. And I kind of feel like what you're doing is bringing people in. They go through that sort of, survey, and they're told who they are and who they're now going out to be. And it's somewhat akin to a rite of passage. I mean, what's your comment to that? That's my perception of what it is that you're creating here.
Yeah, there's different angles you could look at it with. I'm working with people in all stages, so not necessarily a rite of passage of a teenager, right? Although this information is incredibly useful. I wish I had it when I was a teenager. But it is similar in that you're asking people to look at themselves,
Hmm.
right? And in your culture, it's saying, okay, time to like step up. And even with leaders, there's leaders in all different shapes and sizes. It's not just one type of profile of somebody who makes a good leader. We've got people who are more servant leaders. We've got people who are more team players, right? And they're part of that as well. And if they understand, you know what, I am better as a servant leader being among my team, and they know that, they can align themselves that way than trying to force themselves to behave in a way that is incongruent with who they are.
Mm, absolutely. And I mean, we've been through it all, from the time you were a counselor to the franchise beats, and now you're helping people recognize themselves. What's next? What are you working on that we can be excited on now that you've brought us into your world?
Yeah, so I'm growing, scaling. That's what's next. There's going to be more magazines for us. We're growing that out, and I'm working with more companies. I'm doing a lot of speaking. So if anybody needs a conference speaker, I love getting out in front of groups. So definitely going to be seeing more of me.
Absolutely. Now, Tiffany, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience and what you're doing for others is literally going to be changing a lot of lives, and it's nothing short of transformative. So, yeah,
Thank you, Prosper. I appreciate your time too.
absolutely. For those that are watching right now, I mean, obviously, you have seen that aligning talent with purpose is not just theory, it's actually the spark that ignites the entire business. So while you're driving that Ferrari of your company, just check if you're not driving it with a handbrake on, based on, have you got the right people in the right seats? And are you maybe having a huge turnover of people coming in and going, like it's a revolving door? Or maybe you're just stuck and you don't quite know who to hire. And if this episode really spoke to you, so whether you're building a team, exploring your own leap, or you're just hungry for growth, I also encourage you to maybe share this with somebody who needs to hear this conversation. Okay, there's a lot of people out there that are just wondering about, nobody has literally stopped them or tapped them on the shoulder and told them, hey, it's your turn to lead. And obviously, while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show, because this is where we dive into ideas and practices that truly lead you to a happier life and a more fulfilled existence. Until next time, bye for now.